Welcome to the Art Colony, a podcast about art and art history in Provincetown. My name is Gaston Lacombe. Well, welcome to the Art Colony live recording in front of a live studio audience. I feel almost like we're in a 1980s show, recorded in front of a live studio audience, if you're old enough to remember the 1980s. Thank you all for coming, and thank you to our hosts as well. This event has been organized and hosted by the Provincetown Commons and the Provincetown Art Gallery Association. So thank you both for inviting us to celebrate the anniversary of this podcast in this live recording. 1 year of the Art Colony podcast. So we launched this August 11th, 2025. We had a party at the Provincetown Art Association and Museum. Christine McCarthy, who's with us this evening, invited us to launch the podcast there. And it's been quite a journey since we started for me and for my producer, Chad Rossi. So here are some statistics. Over the last year, we've had over 60 guests who came to talk with me about art and art history. We've had, counting all the streaming services and YouTube, over 15,000 downloads. That means that 15,000 times somebody said, I want to listen to the Art Colony podcast today. And I think I'm impressed anyways. 15,000 approximately downloads. Of course, the vast majority of our listeners are in the USA, and they are mostly in Massachusetts and New York, and of course also in the New England states. But we also have regular listeners in California, Texas, Colorado, and we've had downloads in every single state of the US. We also have many regular listeners in Canada, in Australia, in the United Kingdom, France, and Spain, and also in Latvia. And those of you who listened to show number 50 will know why we have Latvia as one of our top listeners. We also have regular downloads from Japan and Singapore. They show up very regularly in our statistics. We have also had many downloads from Mexico, especially in the winter. I wonder, maybe there's a lot of Provincetown people going to Mexico in the winter?
Maybe.
Yeah. And we also have downloads from Chile, from Argentina, from Finland, from New Zealand, and many other countries. It's just impressive that this show, which is, local history, is listened to all over the world. And I think that's a fantastic thing. Now, we've also received 2 generous grants to help us finance this show. One from the Provincetown Economic Development Council and one from the Arts Foundation of Cape Cod. Thank you to both these organizations for helping us sustain this podcast, and we hope to get a lot more grants in the future. If you know of any grants that we should apply for, please let us know. And many of you have helped us also through buymeacoffee.com. You've heard me do this little ad every week. If you want to help us out, go to buymeacoffee.com, look for the Art Colony podcast, and leave us a tip. So thank you to all those who have donated. And this week, we are thanking Judy and Gail and Jerry and Alberto, who are in Spain, for their generous gift to the podcast. So for 1 year now, we've talked about the past and the present of the Provincetown Art Colony. I hope we've all learned a lot from it. So for this 1 year anniversary episode, we'll do something a little bit different, and we'll speculate about the future. Plan ahead a little bit and dream of what's to come. So joining me to chat about the Provincetown Art Colony of the future, we have with us, for the first time on the Art Colony podcast, Jill Rothenberg-Simmons. Jill is the owner and director of On Center Art Gallery in Provincetown. She's also on the board of the Provincetown Commons and has been in the past on the board of the Provincetown Business Guild and has been in the steering committee of the Provincetown Art Gallery Association. Now, for the second time on the podcast, we have Gavin Kennedy. Gavin is founder and partner of Emergent Art Advisory. Gavin was our guest on October 27th, 2025, to talk about supporting emerging artists and also art collecting. And for the third time on the podcast, our undefeated champion, Christine McCarthy, Chief Executive Officer of the Provincetown Art Association and Museum, better known as PAM. Christine was with us on one of the first shows we released, talking about the history of PAM, and also very recently to talk about the work of Avital Sagalin. The work is currently still at the museum, but by the time this podcast goes on the air, it will be down. So before we start, as I said, this event is hosted by the Provincetown Commons and the Provincetown Art Gallery Association. So if some of you are not familiar with the Provincetown Art Gallery Association, Jill, can you give us a few sentences to tell us more about this grouping?
Sure. PAGA was started during COVID, at the beginning of COVID. It came out of a board meeting of the Commons as a way to help and support the local art galleries. And so we worked together as a unit to get through COVID, to navigate those waters. But since then, it has evolved into organization of the local galleries promoting Provincetown as a destination for visitors and art collectors to appreciate and take advantage of our art colony.
My gallery is part of the association, and we have regular meetings where we talk to other galleries and find out what's going on in Provincetown. What are the trends? What are things we can help each other with? What are things that we need to discuss? So it's been really helpful for the last 5 years to have this organization here in Provincetown. So yeah, we're going to talk about the future. Some questions will be more serious. Some questions will be more funny. But let's start with this one. I want to ask the question to our three panelists. What are trends in the arts that we should be paying attention to in Provincetown and in the art colony right now as we look ahead in the future? Now, as I asked this question, I remember about 5 years ago, NFTs. This was the big thing. Everybody was talking about NFTs, and even another local artist here sort of wrote me into it, brought me to New York to a big reception, to all the press was there to sell the NFTs, but nothing came out of it. So that was a big hype 5 years ago. So what are trends now that we should be thinking about as we look towards the future? Do you want to start, Christine?
Sure. I would say one of the reasons that artists have come to Provincetown since the beginning of time is for the light in the landscape. But I think we're looking at the light in the landscape differently now, especially in light of climate change. And I think we're seeing a lot more artists making work in response to climate change on a multidisciplinary level. We're seeing artists incorporating technology. I think AI is something that no one can not talk about, and I'm sure that will come up as we kind of predict the future. But I also think it's a departure from tradition, but not ignoring tradition. I think it's about experimentation, and I think Provincetown has always been a place for experimentation. But I think it's about looking at different materials and incorporating them into non-traditional ways of making art. But I think the climate change piece is influencing a lot of what people are answering or responding to, in addition to what's happening in our world socially, politically, and economically.
Jill, what do you think?
I would agree with that. What I'm seeing is a lot of reclaimed, reused, recycled materials being incorporated, or even just taking old art and repurposing that art. And so it's not creating something, it's creating something new from something old without adding more wasted materials to the environment.
And that's something we talked about on the episode I had with Megan Hinton. We talked about reusing art and reusing materials in that way. And Gavin, what do you say?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me here. It's an honor to be on this 1-year anniversary, and congratulations. And it's nice to be here with both of these amazing panelists. So thank you. I agree with both of you on what you said. In my job, it's really important for me to look at trends on a national basis for my clients. And I think some of the trends I'm seeing really apply quite well to P-Town and the artists in P-Town. And one trend I would say is exceptionalism in art. Like the art market is, post-COVID and has seen some sort of, the trends that you might see online are around the market really wavering. But I think as a result of that, artists that just really take the technical skills really far are those that are seeing success. So, and I think there's a lot of really talented artists in P-Town that really focus on technique, but it's not technique alone. It's not just about replicating the past. I think we're seeing a lot of trends around, people looking towards styles of the Dutch masters, for example, but then recontextualizing them in ways that I think, to the point made earlier, like Chris, have a bigger community and social message behind it. And so I think, those are two trends that I see. There's a lot of trends in materiality, like looking beyond the painting. And I think that's whether it's repurposed objects or textiles or sculpture, et cetera, there's a real movement towards craft. And I think that's in response to this notion of AI and like pushing back on the digitalization of everything. People are looking for work that really, like a true craftsman or a true master, is really like, you can see the hand of the artist. Again, I think that P-Town is a remarkable place for that, based on the pace of the town and the community here, and the level of talent.
So in your interpretation, the advance of AI is actually pushing artists to be more hands-on. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll see some amazing art that comes out of AI and people using those kind of tools in ways that only an artist could do, maybe, and that have that sort of human element. But I think that, as a society, we're craving authenticity and honesty, and as a result, I think things like craft have never been bigger in the sort of global art market, because people want to know that it was really someone put their heart and soul and mind into something.
So as we look towards the future as well, who are artists that, in your opinion, will be talked about more in the future? Artists from Provincetown that will be talked about more in the future. These can be historical artists, living artists, groups of artists, types of artists. Let's start with Gavin.
There's a reason that your show, I think, has done so well, and that's because Provincetown, you mentioned it earlier as a local show, but as we know, Provincetown has had this enormous global impact on contemporary art and art across the world. So, I think we'll always be kind of building on that creative spark through time. And so I think that we'll see people continuing to talk about the amazing voices that have come out of P-Town through the past that have shaped the art world, and I think there's so many. We'll continue obviously to hear about Motherwell and like Henchy and Frankenthal, Pat de Groot. Like there's so many, Paul Ruska. There's so many great artists that are working here today, and I actually think that even not that much has happened, or there hasn't been that much discussion of Provincetown really even like post 1970 or 80, as far as like an academic standpoint of all the work that's happened here. So I would love to see, continued relevance of people like John Waters and Jack Pearson and the Boston School and all of that stuff continue on. But I think that we're going to see, and we'll get to it with like a later question, but artists that are coming out and celebrated by the institutions that are supporting artists in P-Town having a voice prominently. So people that have come through the Commons or the Fine Arts Work Center have been supported, shows of Pam. And I don't want to like spoil my reason for why, but there's, without naming names, I just think that there's like a whole host of artists that are coming through our local arts institutions and community supporting institutions that are going to tell a long-lasting story.
Jill?
It's so hard to predict today who those people are going to be, but I think just being in an environment that fosters artists and creativity, and people want to come here to be creative, we will see those people. And I'm sure they're here. They are here now. It's just I can't pinpoint who they are. And I also am, I don't want someone to say, why didn't you name me?
Christine, what do you say?
Well, I think we know that history shows us we all need to be humble about who we predict is going to be famous. But I can give you 3 examples. If you go to Pam right now, there are 3 artists, Avital Sagalan, Edwin Risland, and Marcia Marcus, who all lived to be in their 90s. They all came to Provincetown in their 20s, and they never knew that 70 years later they would be having solo exhibitions in a museum. So I think that one of the best things that Provincetown does properly is champion under-recognized artists. So we did a big blockbuster of Blanche Lazelle at PAM last year, and everyone said, so what are you doing next year? I said, I'm showing amazing artists that you've never heard of before, but you will never forget them. And I think it's part of our jobs as institutions to champion the under-recognized artists who came here for the same reasons that Robert Motherwell and Helen Frankenthaler came here, and they deserve what every artist deserves, is a chance to show and be part of the community. And we're not naming any names.
Well, I'm not going to name names either, but I think because of something that's happening right now in Provincetown, we'll be hearing a lot more about women artists and non-binary artists in Provincetown, because there's been the revival of the Sail Loft, which is an organization that historically had existed in Provincetown, where women got together, women artists got together, and that organization has been revived. And Elspeth Slater keeps on sending me more and more information about what they're doing, about what they're researching, about what the project they have going on. And because of what they are building there, we are going to hear more, because they are writing it. They are doing it right now. They are building the base for something that will become a database of women artists in the future. So I think we're going to hear a lot more about the women who were here, who are here, and will be here in the future through the Sail Loft. Now, what are things we can do at the moment, right now, to ensure the art colony stays vibrant in the future? Jill, what do you say?
All of the art organizations in town are so vitally important to support the artists, whether they're the artists that are living here or that the ones that come to town during the summer to take classes. The Commons is such a great example of one of those organizations that was a brainchild of an artist that to support these young emerging artists in town, because it is a very challenging place to live. And in my opinion, the Commons is more successful than anyone ever imagined. And it has been doing a fantastic job at supporting them and promoting and helping them learn about the practice of being an artist. But PAM is vital, FOC is vital, Castle Hill, all of these organizations. And last year, another art school started, Truro Clayworks. And I thought, do we really need this? And that has been so successful. Mm-hmm. So people want to come here, and it really does foster the growth and the continuation of the art colony.
Christine?
I couldn't agree more. I think supporting the institutions is just as important as supporting the artists, because without the institutions, there isn't the infrastructure to help the artists. And obviously the bazillion-dollar question, housing, of course, artist spaces, places where artists can work and live and create. But I think change is inevitable. And no matter how we look at the past or the future, the change has always been a piece of how things happen. And I think embracing change, whether we want to or not, is better than rejecting it, because it's going to happen whether you want it to or not. And I think that as we think about the economic landscape here, it's not getting any easier for artists to find housing. So I think the artists, in conjunction with the institutions, have to think harder about how we do that and how we preserve artistic and historic places in this town, but also make space available for the people who want to be here and create and live and work. And I think that's important. I think that's how an art colony stays alive.
Gavin?
Yeah, those are great. It's hard to follow up that. I guess what I would say is, we all know it's really hard to be an artist. And I think it's probably harder than ever to be an artist. Like, I was looking up some statistics recently that, creative people that work in creative spaces make 15% less than people, the average worker. And then beyond that, you need to live in really expensive communities, unfortunately, to be an artist, because really it is about like access to community and those support mechanisms. So and P-Town certainly is an example of an art community or an artist colony that's gotten really expensive. So, my answer, I think there's a lot that people can do. And one is, just second, that's supporting art organizations through donations or showing up to events like this is really vital. And then two, galleries are a really important part of that ecosystem as well. So I think there's actually something incredibly philanthropic and important about buying art on the primary market and buying art from galleries. That money goes to keeping those galleries alive, and then also to paying the artist rent and like driving their careers. So buy art from the places you live, and or buy art, wherever you want to buy art, but just buy art.
Yeah, you heard that. Buy art. Okay. And I want to add also, as we think about the future, there's a fund here at the Provincetown Commons called the Benji Fund. It's a fund that was created to honor the memory of my friend Benjamin Weinrub Grosgall. He was a resident here at the Commons for a while. And in his memory, we created this fund, which has been used to help artists who need financial assistance. So over the last 2 years, there's been a lot of money distributed through that fund to help artists who need to pay for a studio, to pay for supplies. So if anybody listening really wants to help artists in Provincetown to move towards the future, you can get in touch with the Provincetown Commons and see if you want to add a bit to the Benji Fund. It helps a lot of artists here in Provincetown. So, Christine, you touched on this a bit already, change. And we've spoken about this on the podcast a lot, that in every era, there are people who are saying, oh, Provincetown is not what it used to be. Provincetown is not Provincetown anymore. And I recently started reading a small book by Ross Moffat. It's called The First 33 Years of the Provincetown Art Colony and Museum. It was written in 1964. And on the very first page, he writes, "For in the real sense, Provincetown, as known by the founders of the association, no longer exists." So it always shows up. And he talks specifically about, the streets used to be lined with elm trees, and at that point, they were not anymore. We don't have horse carts on the street anymore, and he thought that was a great loss. And he talks about the last town crier. Well, we still have a town crier now. So he's not fully wrong that things have changed, but, we still have a town crier. But anyways, in 50 years from now, when we will be the ones, or the people coming after us will be the ones saying, Provincetown is not the same anymore, what will they be complaining about? You want to start, Christine?
Yeah, they're exactly the same thing they're complaining about now. That's exactly what they're going to be complaining about. Every generation falls in love with Provincetown for a specific reason. You come over 6A and you come in on the ferry. Everybody loves Provincetown for their own reason. And that's always going to change. And I think if Provincetown didn't change, it could be a little nicer about how they accept changes, like the personal experience I had when I moved here to rebuild Pam. That was probably the most unexpected, we are not supportive of anything type of thing. When people say, oh, Provincetown accepts everything, blah, blah, that is the biggest crock on the planet. You are hated until proven otherwise, and you need to prove yourself in this town. And believe me, I speak from experience, but I would be very worried if people weren't constantly thinking about change and wanting to make changes. I just hope that in 50 years from now, there are still trees here, and there's still, Pam is still at 460 Commercial Street and not underwater. But I do think that change is a constant, and it's always going to be here. It's just about how you embrace it and how you use it to your benefit.
Gavin, do you want to pick up on that?
Yeah, I totally agree with everything Chris said. And I think in 50 years, we will hear the same kind of complaints as we hear now. And, I think the town will be more built up, but there's a managed growth kind of thing going on. And so hopefully not too built up. But I think that the spirit of this town being an arts colony is so embedded in the town and who it is, and that's a big part of what makes people come here in the first place, is this notion of this creative energy and this creative, whether it's performance artists or the history of art here or what's happening currently with art. So, to me, I think right now we might be seeing this period of time where it's getting really expensive, and and artists are struggling with housing. But we have town leadership that's really supportive of affordable housing and artist housing. We have, in my opinion, and I could be wrong here, I've been in town for 20 something years, but not living here full time until the last like 6 years. But it feels like more than ever, there's this cohesion between all of these organizations in town that understand that that's a threat. And they're like really collaborating in new and different ways. Like today, with the Commons and Chris being here. And so, I'm not worried about the complaints being around E-Town maintaining itself as an arts community. I think that we're going to find a way to make that happen, like no matter what.
Yeah.
And Jill?
Well, it's hard to add to that, but I think it just needs the right people. You'll always have the naysayers, but you need the right people with the strength and determination to work through all of that and make these things happen and help continue the legacy of Provincetown.
See, I was thinking you'd say like, people will say in 50 years, remember when we could drive down Commercial Street? Because that would be fun, if they take cars off Commercial Street, that would be great.
Well, I just hope there is a commercial street.
Oh, yeah.
Or,
Right,
or
yeah.
remember when they banned
That will be
pedicabs?
commercial.
How about
Remember when they banned
banned
pedicabs?
How about that?
Yeah. I have a story for you. We'll talk about it later.
Okay.
So next question. When future historians look back at the Provincetown of the 2020s, what do you think they will say about the art colony we are living in right now? Jill, do you want to start that one?
I think they'll say it was a thriving community, because if you look at the number of artists that are here, and maybe they won't have names or go down in history books, but the volume of artists that live here today is tremendous. And so I hope at least the very least that will be recognized. I'm one of my responsibilities on the board of the Commons is I review with the committee all the people that want to exhibit here. And it's amazing the amount of proposals and submissions we get and the quality of work that we get from that. So I don't think that's going away. And I hope that is what, we're remembered for.
Gavin?
I hope that too. It's funny. It's like I've been actually thinking about this question a lot because I'm working on a project where I'm thinking about P-Town and the history and where we're going. And as I mentioned before, there hasn't been that much really like academically written about P-Town from like maybe the 80s on. But I also think like just nationally and overall, we're not really living in this time where there's like these cohesive movements like abstract expressionism or whatever, because of, maybe there's a million reasons like social media, et cetera. So P-Town's no exception. There's this cohesion movement of art that I think we're ever going to see here, where it's like everyone was doing like queer figuration or whatever it is. I think though, that's great because it opens up the like community to like a lot of different voices and stuff. And so what I'm hoping that this period of time is known for, I would want to believe and want to be a part of, is like a revitalization of P-Town as an arts colony. Like not to say we ever haven't been, but as I mentioned earlier, I think with like him and 20 Summers and Common, Provincetown Art Society and FOC, where I'm a trustee, and all of this cohesion between them combined with all of this effort taking place at like the town level with around like affordable housing and just great galleries doing great shows, that I think we will see some national big voices come out of here that in this window of time that have a big impact, not just within the local community, but in contemporary art, like beyond. And I think, ideally P-Town will remain like even on a broader map with broader influence from like the spirit here, whether that's a queer spirit or whatever it is, that this is sort of like a Renaissance period for P-Town.
Christy?
I think the 2020s were probably one of the best examples of how this community can adapt. COVID threw the biggest curveball to everybody in this community, and there was no handbook on how we were going to figure that out. Provincetown is best when there's a crisis. That's when Provincetown comes together better than any community to work together, as you were saying earlier, about collaboration and how are we going to figure this out. And I think reinvention and adaptive capacity are what the 2020s should be known for, because when all of a sudden people came from New York and Boston to stay here during COVID, well, they had to completely readapt their lifestyles, how they were working, how they were thinking, how they were living, yet we all still continued on. And we, thought of creative ways to stay connected to our peers and our friends and our families. And I think the creativity and the ingenuity of Provincetown is what the 2020 should be known for.
And maybe you could talk to this, Christina. I was thinking, and I've only been here 10 years. I feel like since COVID also, there's been more of a year-long, year-round art community. It's not just a summer thing.
Yep.
We have a lot more going on in the off-season. For example, the Fine Arts Work Center has the fantastic Winter Fridays, which take place from November to February. And you have a lot going on at the museum as well.
Absolutely.
Is that something that's new?
No. Well, I mean, we've always done things in the winter and there was nothing else going on, but I think there's a lot more going on now. And, it's funny because I live in the West End, and in the wintertime, when you walk at night, usually every window is dark. And then when COVID hit, all of a sudden lights were on that you've never seen in your life. And then people realize that, yes, we actually do things in the winter here. We don't just sit at home and wait for the summer, where that you could actually do something every night of the week if you wanted to in the winter. It's just how you choose to use your time. But I think that kind of secret was like exploded when people realized, oh, I could go to a dinner party, I can go to the movies, I can go to an opening, I can take a class. And when I get that question, I laugh. Like, what do you do in the winter? I'm like, nothing. I hide and I wait for the summer. I'm like, I wish I could hide in the summer and wait for the winter. But honestly, I think that people realize that this community is very year-round. There may not be as many people running around, but there's a lot happening. And I think COVID was really the testament to that. And it grew out of that. I mean, many more organizations have formed since COVID. But I think that people kind of realize, wow, this is kind of a great place to be year-round.
And be an artist year-round.
Be an artist year-round, definitely.
So if you had a crystal ball and you were just looking at it and seeing Provincetown in the future, what are you seeing?
Well, I'm optimistic. I'm always an optimistic person, usually. I think that the human connections, how Provincetown offers human connections, is always, always going to be one of the key factors here. I mean, I think God knows what AI and technology is going to bring to the future, but I think that people love to be with people in this town. And I think that we will be one of the greatest resources, because not just because of our scenery, but because of our creativity. And I think that Provincetown will always remain a creative hub on so many different levels in the future. I don't think that could ever be taken away. And I think the legacy of this town, like I think about the PAM collection, and I think about in 100 years, when people want to know the story of the 2020s, they can look at what artists were here in the 2020s or in 1900. And I think that those types of things, whether it's your podcasts, God knows which way you're going to have to listen to them in the future. But I think recording the history, oral histories, that type of thing is what's going to carry this through and this be maintained into the future.
So Gavin, what's in your crystal ball?
I'm a big optimist too. And I totally agree. And I'm thinking right now just about something Chris said earlier about the creative spirit and the innovation of this community. There's a lot of really smart people that live here that have a lot of drive. And so I think, as I said before, there's a reason that this is the oldest arts colony in America. And I think the fact that was sort of at crisis during COVID, and seems threatened by the idea of cost. I think that I really predict that this idea of this bohemian creative spirit is going to be stronger than ever in that crystal ball in 20 years in the future, and that we're going to be remain not only an arts colony, but like an arts colony that continues to really innovate and punch above its weight and be thriving and remain the oldest and strongest arts colony in the country.
And Jill, what are your predictions?
Provincetown, for many people, is just a safe haven. It's where people can come and be themselves and feel comfortable here. And as so many parts of this world are getting uglier and uglier, I think this is just going to continue to be that safe haven, despite all the naysayers that make our jobs and change difficult. And so because of that, people will continue to come and it will continue to thrive. And even though Provincetown is getting very expensive and very wealthy people are moving here, their money is going to help support these art organizations so that the artists can come and afford to live here, and the organizations can continue to provide the resources that they need and the town needs to continue as we have been for so many years.
I'm happy none of your crystal balls showed great flooding, because it's something we have to think about. You know, there is
Absolutely.
climate change, there's rising oceans. We'll see how we adapt to that as we go in the future. So if we create right now a time capsule that we're going to bury, and in 100 years from now, we'll dig it up and see what's in it. What are you putting in it right now? Let's start with Jill.
Well, I have a long list, so I need a big box.
Okay.
I thought we'd start with literature from all the different art organizations so people can see what, was going on at the time. I would pick small paintings. I'm not going to name names, from local artists to put in. I thought a dog leash would be appropriate. Copy of the P-Town magazine and the Indie, the gallery guide, recordings of the Art Colony podcast, and a digital copy of the Anne Packard movie I thought would be appropriate.
I haven't seen it yet.
No, I
Don't tell
haven't
me
either.
anything.
And then also a program from the P-Town Theater and some of the other non-visual arts organizations, because we are so broad across all the different arts.
It's true. I mean, this podcast has been centered on the visual arts because it has been hosted by the Provincetown Art Gallery Association. But we, at least on my podcast, we always cover all of the arts. We keep it very broad because the artistic spirit lives in many different ways in this town. But yeah, we'll have to get a really big box for your time capsule. Gavin, what's in your time capsule?
Well, actually, some of it was a few things on Jill's Neely. Other things that were not was, I think it would be nice to capture, from an archival standpoint, photographs of each of the organizations and institutions as they are today, with like maybe their leadership. So getting photos of Chris at PAM, and because I think they're going to continue to expand and grow and change as we've seen, and then just being a shill for Fine Arts Rec Center, which I love very dearly. I'd love to drop in some of the writings and work from some of the fellows through there.
That's one thing I think a lot about, taking pictures, to your point, because nowadays we're always taking pictures with our phone.
Yeah.
But I remember as a kid, pictures lived in albums. Pictures were concrete physical things that we could handle and look at. So in 100 years from now, how will people see the pictures that are stuck on our phones? I don't know. We'll have to figure that out. Yeah. Christine, what's in your box?
A lot of the same photographs, like maybe some sketchbooks, a checklist from an exhibition, or a price list to see what artwork was selling for at the time.
Yeah.
A gallery map, maybe of a map of the town to say what was here at this time. I mean, kind of snapshot of time standing still, I guess. Yes, definitely some little pieces of artwork and some of these recordings of people's voices, to hear someone's voice. Like when I curate exhibitions of people that have passed away that I never met, I always try to find any type of medium to hear their voice, because I want to hear what they sounded like and listen to them talk about, if you're fortunate enough to have media where they talk about their artwork, that really resonates with me. And so something like that too.
Hmm. And we'll have to include the technology to listen
Well, that's it. Yeah.
to these recordings, because in 100 years from now, who knows how they will listen to them.
Exactly.
So there, we've taken our little trip towards the future. I wonder if anybody amongst the audience has any questions for us. So the question was for Jill. How do you feel the gallery environment has changed since COVID, and how do you think it's going to evolve in the future when it comes to online purchases, in-person purchases?
During COVID, it was interesting because we thought no one was going to come to Provincetown and into our galleries, but it was shocking how many people did come. But it did allow us to really kind of shift and put our inventories online. And I wouldn't say 70% of our sales are online, but we do a fair amount. And it always pleasantly surprises me when someone contacts us and buy something that they just saw online. They've never seen this artist's work, and they, just liked what they saw. I think it might go more in that direction. I'm hearing more and more from people that they really need to see it in person. But once someone sees something and they know what that work is like, then they can buy it online. It also gave us the opportunity to think about how do we reach people beyond those people that just walk in the door. And that's something that we're going to carry with us. Our gallery and every other gallery that's going to stay relevant is going to have to use social media, do interviews that they post online, just be out there and much more visible beyond our four walls. And we don't do it, but what we've also seen in the art world, and some of the galleries here have done it, is going to art fairs. So you really are reaching a broader market.
So what are the best ways to support artists in town that are functioning in a less traditional way, whether it's the way they show the work, the work that they do? What are the best ways for people in Provincetown and also people online to support these artists?
To go see their performances. There's Cody, who does the Cody plays on Monday nights, and it's so important to go and see be part of the audience and support them. And I think as just members of the community, getting out there and doing that sort of thing and being part of the community and encouraging them to keep going is so vital.
Gavin?
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with that. I think, as I said earlier, it's hard to be an artist. It's hard to be a gallerist. Margins are slim. Like, it's a lot of work. But there are businesses stepping up, like even Azar with Gifford House is doing all kinds of things, like with Flock in the Winter, and other, like, letting artists do shows there. And, the 20 Summers is going to have the new Stanley space. There's all of these, like, non-traditional spaces now and businesses that are opening their doors for people to show their work. And that's why I feel so optimistic, because I think this is such a community. Everyone understands, like, how vital it is that we're a creative economy and that's part of what makes us special. So I think going to those events, again, like buying work when you can, if you like it, and then, continuing to read papers like The Independent that I think are doing a really good job of, like, covering some of those non-traditional, like, outside the box kind of performances, and then posting about it. Like, if you learn about it, it is a little hard. There's, as Chris said earlier, there's so much going on here. It's hard to keep up with it or stay in front of it. And, and as someone that's even engaged myself within the art community here, half the time I have no idea, like, what's going on. So just, like, sharing it out on your Instagram, or, like, better yet, even just, like, calling your friends and being like, hey, this thing's going on tonight, want to go? Is, like, a really great way to, I think. I mean, that's what makes this town so special, is how tight-knit it can be.
And Jill mentioned earlier Cody. So that's Cody Sullivan. If you wanted to learn more about Cody, we had an interview with him, I don't know, about 20 shows ago. So you can look for Cody Sullivan in the Art Colony podcast archive. And he talks a lot about his work and his performance work, his drag work. And he's really become a huge force in the theater scene here in Provincetown. So the question is there anyone or any organizations that helps to facilitate to bring Provincetown artists and their work outside of Provincetown? The person who asked the question mentioned, for example, Art Gazel, which is organized by Alex Guerra, and he is a part-time resident here in Provincetown and in Miami, and he organizes these fairs both in Provincetown and Miami, where a lot of Provincetown artists participate and are they're visible. So are there any other initiatives to help push the work of Provincetown artists outside of Provincetown?
Yeah, PAGA, I think originally we talked about that a long time ago, going to a fair representing the galleries and artists. But it takes a lot of money and a lot of resources to do that sort of thing. They're great ideas. It's just, closing the doors of our gallery and our business to be able to do something like that.
Christine?
I think, the idea of an art association. So our members come from 38 states and 8 nations who show at PAM. Most every creative community has an art association, and you don't have to live in that community to show. And typically they're not that expensive to be a member. Some you have to be juried in, some you don't. But I think there is an art association circuit that people just show. Like in New England, there's probably like 12 that people just show at every single one of them. So that's a great way to get your work in other communities where people do buy art and support artists. So I would always say support your local art association. Yeah.
Another question is, how big will the 12 by 12 show at the museum be in 10 years from now?
I have to build another wing for that.
The 12 by 12
there's 600 or something this year. It's like ridiculously
The 12 by 12 show, for those who don't know, is a show that happens annually at PAM, where the members of the Art Association can submit a 12 by 12 inch piece, and they're all auctioned off to raise funds for the museum. And you said, how many are there this year?
It's something like 600 or over 600.
It's a big show. I have a piece in it. You can go and bid on it.
Yes. It'll all be online in a week from Friday.
So the question is, how do we establish a balance between promoting local artists and also allowing artists from outside Provincetown to be represented and shown here? How do we establish that balance between local artists and the artists who want to be part of the art colony but live and create elsewhere?
The Commons, we have exhibitions throughout the year. Our policy is that you have to have some connection with Provincetown. So you can't be an outsider and just have a show here. So you have to live here. You don't have to live here full time, but you do need that connection. So that is part of the balance. I think the galleries will always exhibit work from local artists as well as out-of-town artists. And in my gallery, we have a mixture of artists. And I think it's important to bring art from other parts of the country or the world to Provincetown to see, just the expanse of different work. So I think within the organizations, they kind of figure it out themselves. And I think there are opportunities for just the local artists.
You just have to give me $60.
Gavin?
I'll speak about FOC a little bit, if that is okay, in regards to that, because I think being a trustee at FOC for many years, it's like a question, something that we've like struggled with and have gotten different types of feedback on over the years. Like I think sometimes people get frustrated with the idea that often the fellows that come to FOC are from outside of the community, and that often is true. But we have to remember that Provincetown there's a reason it's this art colony that people have been seeking. And it's that there's this, first of all, during the off season, there's like this perfect artist bubble or creative bubble with like the quiet and the peace and the end of the world, literal end of the world to work. And it's just a beautiful place too. So it's very inspiring. So I think it's just as important to have really nationally recognized artists or artists that are on that path, like be brought to town, create work here, fall in love with the place and leave, so that they can continue to speak about the influence of Provincetown. And actually it raises all ships. And like by drawing attention, when it's someone like Fairleigh Bios who came through Falk and created some amazing works and then went on to have, national, like huge shows at like Highline and the Whitney, et cetera. She talks about Provincetown and it brings attention to the idea that this is an arts colony with a lot of things happening. So I think, but at the same time, like Falk also recognizes they want to be a part of the community and a resource for community as well. And so there's all these ideas of the Walk Fridays during winter, but then during the summer, there's a lot of opportunity for local artists to engage and, use the space, use the print shop, take workshops and things like that. So it is like this balance, but my hope is that P-Town remains a place where there's a strong, super strong, it is this balance. Like it has to have like this really strong core of support for artists that live here and opportunities for them. But sometimes those big national voices coming through, again, draws attention to it, draws money in, draws people, draws awareness, and then that helps support the local artists as well.
I totally agree. I also think, the Friday nights strolls when everybody is out and about, if you have a piece of art up, like at Pam or at the Commons or in a gallery, stand by your art and talk about it.
Yeah.
Tell people, they want to hear from you. They don't want to hear from me talking about it. They want you to talk about it. And I think that there are many, many opportunities, whether you have an exhibition at Spiritus, wherever. There's original artwork in almost every building in Provincetown, and for a reason. But I think it's important that the artists be part of that instead of, I don't want to talk about my art, talk about your art, because people want to listen to you. And I think that that's really something. And to your point, Gavin, I worked at the Institute of Contemporary Art in Boston before I came here. And selfishly, one of my favorite shows at PAM is the Fine Arts Work Center Fellows, because, you walk into PAM and, you could be looking at something and then you walk into that gallery and you're like, what am I looking at? And I think it forces people to really change their brains about how they think about art, how they look at art. And for some of the fellows, this is their first museum show that they've ever had. And they are going on to win, major awards and show at the Whitney and that type of thing. And I love, love, love that they embrace Provincetown in such a way that it helps really mold a lot of their careers as they move forward. We give a grant out to painters who are over 45 with financial need. And this year we had 600 applicants from every state in the United States. And we had 4 recipients. And we're bringing that art in because I also think it's important for people who live here to get out of their bubbles sometimes and look at what other artists are doing around the country. And I think that's very important that there's a balance between the local, the national, and the international, and between all of the organizations in this town. We can do it. But you have to be able to be willing to stand up and talk about your work and yourself. And that's going to make the connections. That's going to get you, networking, talking to other people, meeting people. And that's the beautiful cycle of Provincetown. You say one thing, it could end up being the other thing, but by the time it gets to the other end of town. But the idea, though, is that you have a lot of people who are interested in that and want to hear about it.
So it's time to wrap it up. I want to give a great thanks to Christine McCarthy, Jill Rottenberg-Simmons, and Gavin Kennedy.
And you, Gaston.
Thank you for joining us on this discussion about the future of the art colony. And I can guarantee you that in the future of the art colony, we'll be doing more podcasts. This is 1 year, but this is not the end of it. We still have a lot of people on the list to talk to, and we will continue recording. And I hope you will stay with us and keep listening to our shows. So thank you all for joining us tonight, either in person or online, and have a great evening. Thank you.